r/AskReddit. What never seems to be portrayed accurately in media. Breaks between classes at high schools. Some private schools may have weird systems, but in public school at least, we didn't get like 20-minute breaks between classes to screw around and have high school drama. You will have 5 minutes between classes to get from class to class. If you have 5 minutes to get from one end of school to a class on the other end, you're not talking to anyone, you're gonna book it. Fighting, like people straight up knock someone out by a full force hit straight to the forehead and their knuckles are somehow totally unharmed, like it don't work like that fam. In most of those cases they should have gotten a trip to the hospital to get their hand x-rayed and put in a cast with compound fractures or worse. Pregnancy. The during and giving birth process. It would be really awkward for certain viewers if a pregnant character breasts leaked on the regular or a main character develops incontinence after giving birth. Of course the last part is a more extreme complication from giving birth, but babies never come out perfectly clean at the size of a 3 to 6 month old with artfully placed blood drops. Diabetic patients on medical shows. If by chance I am trapped somewhere with no insulin available, I would not suddenly fall into a coma. Lack of insulin would make my blood glucose rise over time, which will cause long-term damage to my blood vessels and could cause problems if it goes unchecked for weeks, but I will not suddenly drop into a coma. If I take way too much insulin, there is a high chance it could happen. Writers never seem to have a clue about insulin use. School. Either everyone is happy and cheerful, or whenever someone does a tiny thing, like tripping or something, every person in the general vicinity points and laughs. No one is happy here, but people aren't that cruel, we just keep walking. We've got classes to attend, no time to stop and laugh at people. Protests. No media company is completely unbiased, so they'll always pick a side. Take London protests. One media outlet showed the waste left behind by the protesters, which was left for others to clean. Another showed them cleaning up their own waste. Both are true and both happened. It's just you will never get it true from one source, as they have their own agenda or finding to think about. Defibrillators reviving people when their heart stops beating. In fact, it has the opposite purpose. A defibrillator's purpose is to correct the heart's rhythm from a wrong rhythm to a normal rhythm. It delivers an electric shock to the heart to make it stop for a while and to have it going again, hopefully getting the normal rhythm back. Disclaimer, I'm not a doctor or anything, I could have made a small mistake somewhere in my text. You know all these refugees coming to Europe, right? In media, they are usually portrayed as poor, low-educated tribe people who were driven out of their mountain huts by poor fricks, you know. But once they come here they all suddenly seem to have attained university-level education. Suddenly, according to media, they are now doctors and physicists and whatnot. They just lost all their papers on their way here. CPR. As a qualified first aider, if someone attempted to do CPR the way it's portrayed in movies and other media, you'll end up severely hurting the patient. Also, when the patient wakes up after CPR, it's nowhere near as dramatic in real life. In real life, even if the patient starts breathing again, they'll remain unconscious for a while. Then when they wake up, they'll be dazed, confused, and in many cases extremely violent. Female police officers. They always use famous actresses or supermodels to play female cops, and they always seem to have the strength to carry a wounded officer to safety, or take on a guy in a fist fight, or wrestle a guy to the ground. I've seen enough episodes of Live PD to know that female cops are not supermodels. Death. It's either glamorous or sensationally gory. It's not uncomfortable, or prolonged, or undignified. Death in real life is something that's very hard to get used to, yet we've seen hundreds of people die on screen and we don't even blink. This isn't about desensitization in my opinion, it's all because we so rarely see the real gravity of death. Therapy. IRL there are way fewer clear-cut pat yourself on the back with your amazing insight moments and way fewer client-therapist sexual encounters, unless you are Keith Abloh, I guess. It's generally a much slower and cumulative, yet rewarding, process, and the relationship can be intimate but in much more ethical ways. Anything related to the internet basically. /size/no mom, the internet is not full of people who want to kidnap me. Mom, but you see stories about it on the news. Me, the chances of that happening are very slim mom, and, I am not stupid. I actually have friends on the internet. Actual convo between me and my mom last week. Fricking military uniforms. It drives me insane. Some historical films / Band of Brothers go out of their way to get things right, but most don't bother. I can't think of the last time I saw a TV show, movie, or even most commercials that use current uniforms and get them right. This includes stuff like haircuts and facial hair. That old story about it being illegal to wear them properly is bullshit. It's really not that hard to Google the uniforms and wear the goddamn collar properly. Two things come to mind: first aid, specifically CPR. If a person is unconscious, you're supposed to check if they are breathing, and if they do not, call an ambulance and start compressing the chest with straight elbows. Someone finds a dead person and starts kissing/holding them despite they've been dead for hours/days. Bodies can get really gross in a short time. Medical shows. Nurses and doctors don't have time to sit outside on a bench and chat while discussing only one single patient's plan of care. Doctors don't turn and ambulate patients. In reality, there is hardly enough time and hardly enough staff, so you'll see shooting the breeze at a complete minimum. Also, PPL mentioned earlier, CPR. Running. Anytime someone is going for a quick jog or running a 10K in a movie, they are full on sprinting. Like damn. Maybe if you're doing track repeats you'd sprint, but nobody runs at a dead sprint. That's impossible to maintain. Also there's often runners in like the middle of the road in the middle of cities, not in the suburbs, and that's a real good way to get killed by a car. As a pilot for over 45 years, I can tell you that most reporters are pathetically amateurish in reporting on aviation-related news. Pilots read news stories about aircraft accidents and incidents written by English majors and don't know whether to laugh or cry at the inaccuracies. Even a little fact-checking would be enough to vastly improve most stories, but it seems reporters prefer to latch onto all the stereotypes, misperceptions and wives' tales they've ever heard and publish them as facts. Social media, maybe it's just me, but the way it's portrayed is always bad and evil and full of bullying. I'm not saying there aren't bad parts to it, but whenever I go on Facebook or Instagram, I'm there for memes or just interesting posts. I couldn't care less about someone being on holiday, and the whole comparing our life to theirs thing happens in everyday life anyway. I just feel it's a bit of a scapegoat and probably portrayed not very accurately by the media. Maybe I'm wrong though. Any scientific explanation for some new high-tech thing that may or may not exist? It might not really count, because time travel doesn't exist, but their explanation for how the time machine worked in Endgame was fricking hilarious. Access the quantum realm with the eigenvalue of the inverse Mobius strip. It's literally just like someone picked up an intro to quantum textbook, found some cool sounding words and jammed them into a sentence without rhyme or reason. Hand-to-hand combat. Two guys will smash things over each other's heads, then punch the other guy multiple times in the gut, but they keep fighting. Often the hero gets beat up and is losing before the bad guy says something that really gets a rise out of him, and despite the previous beating, he gets up and defeats the bad guy. In reality, whoever threw the first punch that connected probably wins after that punch is thrown. Being a historian/archaeologist. We are very specialized, and while we do need to know a bunch of languages, but in movies, they all immediately know like 100 languages, and so many of them are super obscure. The way documentation or artifacts are handled make me cringe. I love Indiana Jones, but the moment I start thinking about his breadth of knowledge, it drives me insane. I mean, his dad is a professor of English, not a historian, but they treat all those fields as entirely interchangeable. Responsible gun owners. In the media, people who own guns are stereotyped as rednecks, gangsters, or terrorists. In reality, 99% of gun owners are pretty normal people who go about their life in pretty normal ways, and don't belong to any of the extremist stereotypes perpetuated by news media and Hollywood. Guns, death, grenades, and other weapons. The way people die in movies is gunshot, dust, blood, in that order, and that ain't how it works. Blood doesn't explode out of a human, it flows out, and guns usually have no recoil and don't work how they do in real life. And grenades blow out several pieces of shrapnel, not create a nuclear-size explosion with fire everywhere. Characters in TV shows having the money to whatever they want. For me, what stands out the most is Marshall and Lily in HIMYM. He's unemployed for a good part of that show, and Lily is a kindergarten teacher, and they live in New York City. They are constantly eating out and going to the bar to drink, and there is absolutely no way that'd be possible for them. Southerners. I'm a Texan and can say that, no, we do not all have heavy accents. Very few of us own a horse, they're expensive as hell, and, no, we don't all drive a pickup truck. But we most certainly are nicer and more helpful than people from the north. Seriously, if you're ever in Texas and you need help, just ask someone. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone who doesn't want to help. Dinos. Always the same, scaly movie monsters. When the original Jurassic Park did it, it was cool, as they were portrayed in a way that audiences had never really seen, and it was scientifically accurate to boot. I'd love to see a well-done feathered raptor, or non-tail dragging stegosaurus for once. Thanks for watching this auto-generated video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I upload videos like this one daily. I put a lot of time into developing this video generator, but if there have been errors, please tell me in the comments below. Also leave me a link to another thread you would like to see a video about. Have a great day, Alex.